Before the video begins, quick disclaimer. Again, this video contains spoilers to RWBY along with Volume 6, so beware. And this is just my personal opinion, and I don't want to be lynched for my views and criticism, so beware that as well. RWBY Volume 6 came out, and it was quite promising. I was getting a lot of ambition when I first saw the clip prior to the release of the first chapter of 6, and I was hoping it would have less of a standstill with its story compared to Volume 5, where the main characters were just sitting in one area the whole time. And I want to give a brief review of each chapter from Volume 6, so I can be specific with its contents to clarify my views. Chapter 1 begins with the main cast getting ready to board a train heading to Atlas, and we get your typical RWBY comedy gags that are sweet and simple. We also meet two hunters that may or may not become important later on if they do serve a purpose in a future volume, as they only show up for Chapter 1. The gang gets separated after Grimm's attack their train, forcing Team Juniper to split up from Team RWBY and Crow and Oscar. I'll just call Oscar his real name as he is more frequent in this volume than Ozpin. They also have an old lady tag along with them named Maria. She's a pretty good character. The overall first chapter was a promising start. It was fun, energetic, charming, and it has some new fresh material in its setting being more drift and snow. Great start. Loved it. Chapter 2 is basically when the volume starts to slow down, as the entirety has dialogue and explaining from the characters, which also explains some rules and backstory involving the lamp relic and its reasoning why they're carrying it. We also see a genie-like woman inside the relic named Jin. I can already see the Rule 34 being made on her, and I hate it. Also, Cinder is still alive. Fun. The second chapter wasn't as good, but it's just more exposition with some humor within it. But I think it is dull comparing to the fast pace of the first chapter. Overall, it was still good. Chapter 3 has, can you guess it, more exposition. This time we see the backstory of Ozpin and how he became an immortal being, along with Salem, in which they were mortal and lovers in the beginning. But Ozpin dies of sickness. Salem wants the gods to heal him, but they refuse and make her an immortal for being a big crybaby over it. I think the main issue I have with Salem's backstory in Chapter 3 as a whole was on how they were supposed to sympathize with her having a tragic backstory, but she just comes off as spoiled, and it really doesn't contribute to her as a villain, but she just wants everything. Reminds you of someone? Also, RWBY asked Jin for who Ozpin was, but she just gave us the whole story of Salem. She's really not good at her job. As a whole, Chapter 3 was a bit of a turnoff. The storytelling isn't that bad, but I think its execution of Salem's origin was done poorly. Chapter 3 was just an for me. Also, the voice actor for the God of Light was Chaseface, a YouTuber that does reviews on games and anime, and I recommend him greatly for his content and how he is such a good guy. Chapter 4 is where everyone is now acting like complete jerks, especially to Ozpin. All the main characters start losing hope of trying to complete their mission, especially when they learn their number one threat is unstoppable. So now they just have to keep going for whatever reason. Everyone is just standing out in the snow trying to comprehend what their plans are, despite their only mentor is hiding inside a teenager after getting hooked by Crow. Dude, that's still Oscar. You just punched a teenager. While the rest is kind of what Volume 5 was, I think the turn of the volume is becoming a bit of a disconnect now, and it really makes me sad. But it eventually shifts our focus back to Mercury and Emerald, as they're still with Salem after their failed attack at Haven last volume. It is good to see Emerald and Mercury, as they're in this complete dismay with their relationship with Salem, and I feel more sympathetic for the two of them than the rest from this chapter. Even Hazel, he is one of the least crazy ones from the Salem arc trying to defend two teenagers. Chapter 4 I think slowly dwindled me further from the characters more as they seem to repeat themselves, being less understanding of the situation, and they come off as bitter, and it only gets worse from here. Chapter 5 is where we see Cinder again, as she previously was trying to hunt down RWBY in chapters before, which is when we finally get to see the return of Neo. She just comes out of nowhere. I was at first excited, but I'm still left with questions. Where did she go? Was she stalking them the whole time? Why show up to fight Cinder when she clearly wasn't the one that was responsible for Roman's death? She's seen it herself, I think. They'll probably explain it later on in Volume 7. Maybe. But they just reveal her so suddenly, feeling more of a turnoff than a twist or a surprise. Still can't talk, by the way. We then are back with Team RWBY with a weird tone change, feeling more like a horror movie. This happens when the gang encounters an old abandoned town to seek shelter from the cold for the night. But turns out, it wasn't abandoned. Every person there is dead in their beds, as if they all went to sleep and never woke up again. We also see everyone slowly lose hope and become more dreary of their goal. Chapter 5 for me was a more confusing, as it reveals a lot with Neo in the town of sleeping dead people. But again, it was okay. Chapter 6 continues with Ruby and the gang feeling miserable. Crow's been drinking more than usual, everyone is drifting apart, and everyone's just becoming tired. They all know they have little options left, with Ruby trying her best to stay positive throughout, trying to encourage everyone. It ain't working though. We also learn the reasoning behind what happened to the town before, as Grim in the sewers below it had made all the citizens go to sleep and they never woke up. The gang were close to experiencing the same fate till Maria told Ruby to use her silver eyes, where she does and destroys the Grim. Then after fleeing with a cart towards Argus to meet up with Team Juniper, hopefully safe. I think chapter 6 was better than the few ones before, as we see some emotional connection with the gang, and some development with others trying to keep each other positive. I liked it. I think it was better. Team RWBY find John and the others as they were staying with one of John's sisters, and has been offering them a place to live. Which is cute to see this stuff after all the doom and gloom and nearly dying, until we see that they won't be leaving to Atlas as quickly or easily. I think chapter 7 starts to progress more with our story with less gloominess. While being a turnoff with everyone nearly dying last chapter and never brought up again, I think it does bring a return with its charm again. I think things are getting better. Chapter 8 introduces us to Carolyn Cordovan, the head officer of Argus military and being a past rival to Maria. I like her. She's cartoonish, overbearing with power, and would later become a surprising opponent later on. Of course, she refuses for them to access a ship, or be escorted to Atlas, but they are willing to escort Weiss with her being a Schnee. Eventually, the others find out about the situation regarding Ozpin, and a lot of them snap at Oscar, especially John. Again, there's still a teen in there. That really isn't necessary, you guys. Ruby asks Maria to help her understand her silver eyes, as she had them as well before her injury. Maria tells Ruby to think of people she cares about and positive stuff, as it seems to function them that way. Also, Oscar runs away. Chapter 8, I think it was a good one as well. Yes, there is still melodrama between the characters, but all in all, I think it was still good. New interesting characters and a more better mood than before. I liked it. Chapter 9 is another good episode as we see better development between Emerald and Mercury as they have a brief argument and fight with each other regarding their situation without Cinder, as we also see Tyrane and Watts leave for Atlas. I will admit, the villain arc in this volume is quite the best so far, as we see some sympathy for most of the villains. It also continues off with the gang searching for Oscar all over the city, where the focus switches to Team Juniper when John discovers a memorial statue of Pyrrha in her honor after being killed in Volume 3. This then leading to an actual heartwarming and emotional moment. All the 3 Juniper members gather around their fallen one after so long. It feels a lot better. No heavy melodrama, no wincing or blame, just some hope. They know they aren't the strongest, but they also believe that they can carry on in the same strength, the same way their friend did, and she may have thought the same way too. And it finally ends off with the gang discovering that Oscar was okay and was still back at the house, and feeling a lot better than before. And wearing a spiffy new outfit. Ruby also comes up with a plan to make it to Atlas by stealing a plane since the military won't help them, with Ruby finally talking back at Crow, telling him to stop being a miserable drunk and let them take the risk after he tells them the danger they can get in. Chapter 9 was a lot better than I expected. It was emotional in a good way, heartwarming, and it actually hit home to a genuinely great scene that later cuts to something cheery but still warming. I think it was great. Chapter 10 is when we go forward into the plan to steal an Argus military plane. Weiss sneaks Maria and Oscar on the plane when she lies about going back home. They have Blake disarming the sensor towers to make it to Atlas, hopefully undetected. But they do get detected thanks to Adam showing up unexpectedly, foiling their plans with Blake unable to take out the towers on time. Cordovan also finds out, gets angry, and comes in to stop them using a giant robot used to protect the city. But stopping a group of teenagers is a better way to using it, obviously. So now the gang must fight a giant mech. This was a simple chapter that was meant to be led up to a final fight. It's fun and pretty interesting, and is made up to be a build-up for the final battle. Pretty good. Chapter 11 is where the battle begins. The gang fights back with all they got while Yang sets out to defend Blake as she knows she is in danger, which she is. Adam is here. They fight each other while Adam starts yelling about how she betrayed him, while everyone else is trying to take out Cordovan's shield on her mech, while she hits back with missiles and such. It's pretty rad. Chapter 11 is when the stuff begins. I don't want to get into details as it's mainly the fights, but it's still great. I love the fights and the gang going against a powerful mech. Really cool. Love it. Chapter 12 is when Cordovan's mech gets defeated in the death of Adam when Yang and Blake both simultaneously stab and kill him. While many RWBY fans have said this decision to kill off Adam was wasted potential for better development or too early and that it was just completely wrong, here's my view. Adam was never good or interesting to begin with. Yes, he was a big focus as a villain in the first 3 volumes, but he never had full staying potential, being bland of a character and a complete brat for a story that could have been explained, yes, but it still won't make up for how uninteresting he is, or how his motivation is just to hurt Blake, and all because she left him behind. His death isn't me saying how he was wasted potential or that he was too good to die off early. He was never that great to start off with, and I think his death serves a purpose of being an example for Blake to let go of her past, as it has been for what Adam had a grudge for the entirety of the show. Adam is dead, and I'm glad he is. So, chapter 12 ends with the whole swarm of flying Grimm heading to Argus along with a big Leviathan ready to destroy everything, and they just stopped the only person capable of preventing this whole damage. I think this one was also great, and I can understand the controversy revolving around Adam's death, but I personally don't care about Adam, so moving on. Chapter 13 is the final episode, which was a twist for me since it usually ends with 12. Meh, whatever. So, everyone is left in a stumble over what to do about the Grimms. Then RWBY comes up with a plan to use her silver eyes to stop the Leviathan. So, as she is about to think of good stuff to use them as what Maria told her before, she instead thinks of bad stuff from previous chapters and so. So, she calls for Jin as a quick reaction to get some time to think, but not to make a wish. And she does think of good stuff and frees the Leviathan while Cordovan comes in and kills off the bad boy. Everything ends happily with Cordovan finally letting them leave with the ship to Atlas. Crow finally shows some positivity after this whole mess and doesn't even take a swig to show even he is starting to think lightly. But as they arrive to Atlas, it's pretty secured, anticipating for an interesting and new volume next year. Also, Neo and Cylinder still exist. Yay. Chapter 13 was another great one, ending pretty warming and letting our gang feel some tranquility after all the stuff they went through the entire volume. Now for my final thoughts. Yeah, I liked it. I think it started off strong, feeling fresh with some heart to it, but I feel it started losing me along the way and throwing a lot of unexpected material midway, along with more lackluster melodrama that wasn't written well. But I think stuff got better when they got to Argus with some ups and downs, but I think it had a great build-up with a good ending to the volume. The fights I think have been improved on. Once again, the animation becoming more and more better visually and stylistically. Sure, there are some issues, but I did enjoy the volume and I can't wait for more stuff. I'm excited about the future, and I hope no one is preparing a guillotine for me in the comments. Hey, so if all of you don't realize, Vic Mignogna, the voice actor for Crow, was recently fired off of Rhapsody due to harassment allegations towards him. I know this whole trend of allegations has been going on for a while now, especially with the Me Too movement, and I support people who have suffered through harassment and I hope for better of them, but I don't support all this stuff, especially with a lot of them coming out as false. I know there's a lot to say about this, but I don't want to go too deep about it. But I will say that I support Vic all the way, and I hope he can find a good opportunity to get back into the business without this type of trouble. I wish the best for the man, and that this whole movement can just blow over already from all these lies and controversies. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more, like, and all that crap. And I'll see you all soon. Thank you.